I'm excited to be able to share some of that with you. And of course, Bill, if you being founding everything, feel free to jump in. But basically, what Global Conscience, the goal, overall is to connect with the people that are doing and the organizations that are doing a lot of good in this world. And we have some feral chickens out here. Sorry, I'll try to calm them down. That's what that noise is.
That's
I'm
great.
But yeah, so the goal is to bring people together, and we want to learn what all of our partners and our people that are making a difference on big and small scales are doing to help the environment and battle climate change.
Right.
One of the things that we're trying to do is that we have ambassadors, and we're in about 65 different countries right now with ambassadors. We have about 350 ambassadors, and we just started this probably less than 6 months ago. We plan on having possibly 1,000 ambassadors by the end of this year, maybe 10,000 ambassadors next year. Now, why are these ambassadors important? Well, because they're going to be spreading the word. We're asking every one of our ambassadors to go ahead and share our information that we send to them. And then they put it, and we're trying to do it in every country. What they do is they put it in their language and translate it for us. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're hoping to do it. So we're trying to build as a worldwide network that when we publish something or we do something, it goes out there, is possibly could go somewhat viral with our organization if we can get that many ambassadors spreading the word on a worldwide basis. That's what we're trying to do. Will it work? I have no idea, but that's what we're trying to attempt.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, and there's so many organizations, and it's like, and what we've found is that we would like to be that place that connects everyone, so it's rather than having like separations as much, we think that more people can do more together, right? So
for sure.
But yeah, so you have a very interesting past from what I understand, and I'm really excited to hear about how more about how you got everything started. It's from what I understand, you started out as a scientist, and you were studying the brain, like sleep patterns. Is that correct? And then you became involved as an artist with doing sculptures, and that kind of led into your journey building or co-founding your nonprofit. Do I have that kind of correct? And could you elaborate?
You have the timeline correct, and it's all been intermingled my whole life. So it's not like I just discovered the next one. I mean, I always was interested in math and science my whole life, and was good at it. So I went into science and really enjoyed that. But I also was doing art my whole life and took classes as a hobby. But I realized that I really loved making stuff with my hands. So I decided to transition away from science. I couldn't do both. So I've been a public artist for 25 years, doing commissions and installations around the world. And then that continues to this day. But in the last 5 years, since 2015, we just realized we needed to start focusing on the environment and environmental awareness about the climate emergency. And our family, started small. It started by our family. We started composting, encouraged our whole neighborhood to compost. We use solar energy. We have electric car, but every time we started doing something, we just feel like, well, that's not enough. And we just started to reach out to schools, and we built this inflatable booth, which says, "How are you helping the environment?" And we used it as a sort of a mascot, if you will, to go to schools and universities to talk about sustainable living, a meat-free diet. We have a couple of our family members, including myself, are vegetarian/vegans, and it just sort of each step, and then we got sort of inspired by this girl who created a parachute for the climate march in 2017, and also inspired by the AIDS quilt campaign in the 1980s and 90s, which was one of the most successful social awareness campaigns in America. So we felt like, God, they did it. They overnight changed, started federal funding for that horrible disease. Why can't we use parachutes as a way to activate communities to plan sustainable actions together and individually, as well as to take their parachutes to politicians to demand, better climate laws.
And it's fascinating how that has, transpired so far. And it sounds like what's occurring, especially with your work with these parachutes, is that's a pretty big campaign also, right? I mean, you've got a lot of, places that are doing that now. Is that is going on still right now, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at a box that I'm about to send to Australia. Yesterday, I sent a box of parachutes to Greece, and India is going crazy over there. Africa have many, many countries. We're in 79 countries presently. So, originally I created this Mother Earth sculpture in 2015. And my idea that my son, actually, his idea was to place it in different continents around the world as a way, as a symbol of sustainability and a way to inspire people with art to be more aware. As a public artist, I know that it's very difficult to work with cities. There's a lot of bureaucracy and political loops you have to go through, hoops. So I have found that process of we have like 6 of these sculptures in different continents right now. And one of them is in Bonn, Germany, across the river from the UNFCCC, which is the Paris Climate Accord headquarters for the United Nations. And we have a lot of volunteers there that have connected our project to the United Nations. The project just sort of found the sweet spot on its own. And we started to do that. And basically, the power of the project is that people get around the parachute, sit around it, they introduce themselves, they talk about their own personal emotions, concerns, anxieties, things that they do. They take short showers, and you start a conversation, you get to know each other with a very specific idea in mind. Originally, it was only about the climate emergency, but with, our project is sort of people-led. So the whole website has had hundreds of iterations of input from people all over the world. And our major director in Europe, in Bonn, Germany, it said, we need to focus on the SDGs, which are the Sustainable Development Goals. This project has really activated a lot of communities around the world, and people they understand immediately what the power of the project is. And we basically give them guidelines on our website about, making a large central image of a local landmark or some theme, better climate laws, and then surrounded by smaller messages. So you have a parachute that has a large message from afar, but also more messages when you come up close to it. And actually behind me is a group in Tacoma, Washington, that did something around the government buildings. It was actually 24 different environmental groups came together with these parachutes. And we're hoping to repeat it for the World Climate March, which will be next week, Friday, the 24th. We work very closely with a lot of organizations, including Greta's Friday for Future. We've distributed many, probably, well over 1,000 around the world to these youth activists, excuse me. So, I mean, I can tell you, I think one of the big stories that happened, I'll just share one, is that we were asked to get involved in the Pope went to Panama City for a world pilgrimage I guess 2 years ago now, and we sent about 20 or maybe it's 40 different parachutes, which went to all the different parishes around the country, and these communities painted their parachutes. They brought them into Panama City, and then they were displayed inside the stadium for the last mass with the Pope, to just express the concerns about the climate emergency. And I think the Pope took one of the parachutes back with him to the Vatican City, and then a couple months later, he came out with a very large statement saying that the climate emergency is a major issue for the world now. And he has like over 1 billion followers, so it was a pretty big event. I mean, obviously, we can't take full credit for it, but it was definitely timed in a very coincidental way. So we feel like we were part of the tipping point that the Pope realized that this is the critical issue now.
I was like 3 or 3 years old when that I guess the displays for the HIV
Yeah.
like was happening. Have you so far seen this like a similar sort of, I mean, obviously with like the Pope, of course, this is a big reaction. Have you seen the similar kind of awareness from this campaign that it sounds like was inspired by that event in the 90s for what you guys are doing? Have you seen like a lot of positive, like, just outcomes like already from that?
You mean from the quilts or from the parachutes?
From the parachutes that you guys are doing?
Yeah. So I can share a few other stories. I mean, in Canada, that's a really big story. They surrounded the Parliament building with parachutes. They had a lot of photo ops with politicians who liked photo ops with kids and art. And then they passed legislation on carbon pricing, which is a major step for the country. I mean, carbon pricing is about sort of putting the onus on polluters, that you need to reduce your pollution or you're going to be taxed heavily. So carbon pricing is a major focus of the citizens climate lobby. That's pretty much their main and only focus, because they feel that is the way towards a sustainable future. If you have to pay for your pollution, then you're going to be incentivized to produce less pollution. So that's one big story. Let's see. I mean, in Africa, we have had a lot of stories of communities taking their parachutes to in India also. I've been on a lot of calls with Indian politicians, environmental ministries. So they're working. I mean, as far as like, do I have laws in hand to show the direct connection between the parachutes? Once again, this whole social awareness campaign is a very odd animal. I mean, I'm coming from science where you do experiments and you get results. So, I would go to, we were down at we've been down to the US Capitol. I live in DC. So we had 100 parachutes and 100-foot diameter parachute in front of the Capitol, which could never happen again because it's all surrounded by, fences. But when we had multiple politicians speaking there, but it was mostly young people and indigenous peoples talking about, their lands being, taken advantage of. So, that presence is powerful. We get a lot of press, we're in all the papers, but, still there's a feeling of futility at the end of it, because you just don't know whether or not, what does that mean? Did we move the needle, and what do we do? So,
absolutely. No, I think everything that, we can do, and sounds like you guys are doing a lot, does absolutely, influence in a massive way. And as you said, it doesn't, like, being a scientist, it's like you might not see that result immediately, but you will see it. But actually, and just a couple more things here. I feel like I could talk to you forever, but I just highlighted a couple things I wanted to touch on. You have one of your sculptures in DC, is that correct? I saw photos of that. It's beautiful.
Yes. So originally the sculpture, the story behind the sculpture, as you know, I'm a public artist, and I had a curator from the Smithsonian come to my studio to see another work of art, and they saw a profile of me that I had created just on the side. I'm not a portrait artist. I do more modern art. So she saw this portrait of myself in 3 dimensions, and then they started a whole conversation with the Smithsonian's Portrait Gallery, National Portrait Gallery down in DC. And I was originally supposed to put that sculpture in front of that museum. In the 11th hour, the director said, listen, we've had a change of plans. We'd like you to make a small version of it that's only 12 inches high. And it's going to be sort of like our Oscar award at the Smithsonian. We're going to give it to great Americans that have made a contribution. So that's what I do. I produce these smaller trophies for the Smithsonian going forward. And then the big sculpture, suddenly, I had rights to do whatever I wanted with it. And that's when my son said, well, why don't you make it and put it in all the continents of the world, which was like a whole big mind-blowing thought, because my career was only domestically focused at that point. So that's what we did. And we decided to try to find a home and put it into Georgetown, which is a small area of DC, which is like the social center point of the city, was a major event. And that was just, like everything. And, it's who you know and the timing. So I met a fellow parent from my kid's school who is in charge of the business improvement district in Georgetown, which means he's very tied into all the public spaces of elevating that part of the city. And he said, I can, because the thing about Washington, DC is all the public spaces are national parks, like Yellowstone. So you can't put any artwork on it. So, that was a big disadvantage. So in the end, the sculpture is not in a national park. It's actually physically on a street, which is at the end of a street that goes into the Potomac River. So it looks like it's in the national park, but actually, if you look at the the city plan, it's on a street. So that's how we got around that. So there's a story for you.
That's awesome.
The most recent new thing that we've decided to embark on, I've had a lot of people say we want to do a mural on a wall, which I've pushed back on. But now I realize, because I mentioned with Jess, just the difficulty of placing these Mother Earth sculptures just takes years. I mean, I've been to 30 different embassies in Washington, DC, pushing the idea with some success, but not so much. So what we're doing now is we're actually encouraging communities around the world to just paint a picture of the Mother Earth sculpture on a wall, a community wall, and then surround it with like community members that are like standing around the sculpture, almost to sort of create a virtual Mother Earth sculpture scene that you would see in real cities, with, pictures of locals standing there and, in the landscape, and also other text message, texts, other messages. So in that way, we're bringing, this symbol of sustainability to different communities in a way that will have another level of visibility. So we'll see where that goes, and whether there's, that has, the idea is to basically create center points for sustainability events and strikes at those locations.
Jess, do you have any other questions?
I have one final question, Dr. Rubentstein, if you wouldn't mind, just to wrap things up. What's
Sure.
what's the most important thing that someone watching our interview today can do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that everyone needs to be activated. I mean, as Greta says, hope comes through action. And I believe it, because, I mean, yes, I do get depressed from time to time, but I do feel that our efforts, it's a roller coaster of emotions we all feel. You'll get up one day and you feel great that you're making a difference, but then the next day it doesn't endure necessarily. But I think action will bring hope. I think we are definitely reaching a point in our society where there's a lot of emotional stress about the climate emergency. So those people need to get more involved, and not feel the futility of it. I do think there is hope. I mean, I do think that now that renewable energy is cheaper than coal and most fossil fuels, that is a tipping point. So whether or not, our next administration is going to push for coal again, it's not going to work, because no one's going to want to buy a more expensive energy source. They're going to want to buy the cheapest, and that's so the capitalism aspect of it. So I would just recommend, that young people just get on the streets with the Fridays for Future movement. I mean, that's definitely been a tipping point. And that's what we've been helping to focus on. And they can do that by going to our website. They want parachutes, motherearthproject.org/parachutes, or they can go to fridaysforfuture.org and see when, the World Climate March is going to be next week, Friday, I said the 24th, and we are expecting, 5 to 10 million people in the streets worldwide. So those are going to be, that's my big ask.
Wow, that sounds pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And, I think just, sorry, go ahead, Bill.
No, you go ahead, Jess. Sorry.
Oh, thanks, no problem. I was going to say, Dr. Rubentstein, as Bill mentioned, you guys are doing a lot of amazing work. And while I certainly understand that feeling of maybe when you wake up and you're thinking, man, like, it's like we're not seeing all the progress we're making. It's like, just try to give yourself a lot of credit for what you are doing, because it's a lot. And I mean, the more that you guys are growing your organization and connecting people and, sharing what you share with us, which will then be shared, it's like we have to remind ourselves that sometimes that these seemingly small actions really can lead to a lot of really big, consequences, positive ones. So thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah, and I know about the stress and the problems, because last night I was up half the night worried about how we're going to make this all fall together and work and continue on it. So I worry about it all the time. So I understand your stress and concerns, and how sometimes you want to throw the towel in because it just seems incredibly too much to do.
Yeah. So that's exactly, this is the exact point where people are sitting around a parachute right now. And when we end all of our calls, everyone sort of puts their hands up and pretends you're holding on to a parachute. And that's what what we're doing right now is sharing our emotions about the climate emergency, and how much is actually at stake. And being like around a parachute before people decorate it, or even after they decorate it, is like a bonding moment where you feel connected in a way that, I mean, I feel empowered by just hearing you share your personal emotions about it. That makes me feel connected to you guys, and hopefully likewise for yourselves. And that's sort of powerful, because that gives us sort of collective energy about the future.
How would people support you, and what kind of needs do you need from people for your organization?
Well, I mean, people can donate. There's a donate button at the top right of our webpage, so they can do that. People that want to become, I mean, our biggest hope is just people become part of our parachute community, and they request parachutes. If you go to the free parachutes page, which is motherearthproject.org/free-parachutes, it asks whether whether you have the means to purchase your parachutes. And if you do, it has a button where you can actually just purchase your parachutes, and we have many people that do that. And then for those that don't have the financial means to do that, then we still ask them to contact us for parachutes, and so we ship them for free. So that's what we do, and that's how we connect with others, is by shipping parachutes. And then also they send us photos and videos, and they tell us their actions. I mean, the stories are literally endless. If you go to the parachutes page on our website, you can see the parachute community database, and you can just learn about what all these communities have accomplished. But there are many hundreds of stories that are, real. So,
Wonderful.
hope I answered your question.
Well, I hope that this interview will give you some response of people that will support you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're not really looking to be supported in the sense of, financially. We're just looking to activate communities. So that's our success, is when we activate communities with our project using art, because that's what many of the people of the world, they're afraid to share their voices. Many of them because they're in harm's way, because environmentalists are being killed in the Amazon and in Africa. But many of them are empowered by our project because it's
Amazing. Well, as you said, Dr. Rubentstein, I guess you end your calls with the holding up of your parachute. So
what
I
we
got
do is
mine here, my virtual one.
put up your hands, and if we shake them together, we sort of can imagine a physical parachute that we're holding together, and you can feel the pull. When you pull away from each other, you can be pulled and pull the other, and that's awesome. A way of sort of feeling connected.
I love that. Well,
awesome. And let me know if I can help you guys. Thanks for reaching out to us. And I have other family members around, but at least you got me.
Well, maybe at some point we can also talk to your family members too.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, everyone's busy with their stuff, so it's but for sure we'll give it a try.
Thank you so much for all your information and for all that you're doing.
I don't have anything else, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, you too, guys. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you both.
Same to you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, have a great day. Thank you so much.
Take care.
You too.